I'm so glad I've set my life up so we have wood heat. As you know, I got 15 years worth of firewood. It's oak and hickory, and I know somebody's going to say, oh no, you can't keep 15 years worth of firewood, it'll rot. It doesn't rot. I've told the story many times that I found a pile of firewood out in the woods. It had been sitting there since the 90s. It was covered up. I took the sheet metal off of it, burned it. It was dry. It was not rotted. One cord is 3 truckloads of my small truck of regular cord size. And I know everybody talks about different cords and rick cords and all that. No, just a cord. You got to have dry firewood. And I know that's really tough work. You go out there, you stack it up, and you let it sit for 3 years, 2 to 3 years, oak and hickory. The less harder woods, you can get away with 6 months, but oak and hickory is about 2 to 3 years. And you gotta make sure it's 20% or less. You get a moisture tester and you check it. Carolyn's been splitting it up. She's been using from an old pile of wood that we just couldn't use last year or the year before. I considered it bad, rotten. And she's been going out and salvaging it, picking up a lot of good wood out of that. So that's gonna give us some extra firewood. Not a lot, but even if it's half of a year, that's pretty good. Now, I only light this about 2 to 3 times a day, sometimes 4. Get up in the morning about 5 o'clock, I light it up, and that'll last 8 hours. Now, the flame only lasts about 2 hours, maybe not even that long, but the residual heat from the coals and the insulation and the wood stove keeps the house warm for 8 hours. Now, what I do is I let it get about 90 degrees in here. It's a tiny house. And then I just let it cool down all day long until about it gets to 68, and then I start it up again. Like I said, 2 times a day. When it starts getting down into teens and single digits, negative digits, it'll get up to 3 times a day. And then when we're in the negative digits or low single digits, Carolyn usually stays up later than me, so she'll light it before she goes to bed. And then again, I light it at 5 o'clock. And this is doing very well to keep us warm. We've never had a problem. I mean, it's a little bit of work, and people don't like work. I understand. Oh no, I want gas heat. I want propane heat, electric heat. But in my mind, I'd rather work at doing this than going to an employer and working for them. It was a lot of work getting the firewood. I say a lot of work. I hardly remember it. Carolyn and I go out for a few minutes at a time, split some firewood. The hardest work was we go out and get firewood that people are giving away for free. So we go out and get it. So sometimes you get into these hilly areas and you got to pull them up that hill. It can get pretty rough. But as fuel prices go up, this is the best option all around. So as you know, we live off grid, and a lot of people have different definitions about off grid, propane and gasoline and all that stuff. But the longer we're here, the less we have to use those kind of amenities. That's what I'm calling them, because we don't have to have them. It's just we like to have them. Now, we recently got this camper for Carolyn's son so he could stay here. He stayed here a couple months and then left. So Carolyn's been using this a lot to cook. And I used it to can. As a matter of fact, I'll probably do a canning video here in another couple days. I got this full of chicken. We just went shopping and got some chicken, so I'm going to can that up. We had to get some eggs because Carolyn's been using a lot of eggs here lately, and we ended up using all our eggs from our chickens. So she's been cooking on this, and it's been pretty nice for her. Now, of course, this takes propane. In a minute, I'm going to show you her backup system. When we're talking about propane, really the only thing we use propane for is for the stove here, which again, we don't really need to do, and hot water. We have a on-demand water heater. It's a little camping water heater that uses propane just for our showers. But since Carolyn's been in here, she's been using this coffee pot, coffee maker, and we can run that off solar, especially on sunny days. Cloudy days have been a little bit more rough. On the rougher days, she heats it up over a flame. Again, propane, but we don't have to do propane. We can do it over wood. So we can get water now from our well off solar panels, since we've improved our solar panels, and we can heat it up. Now, she uses these little tubs to wash the dishes in. So she'll put one of those coffee pots full of hot water in there, and it's so hot you can't touch it. And then she fills the rest of it with cold water. So in an SHTF situation, if that really became a problem, we could take sponge baths. It's just going to be the reality of life for most people. We could probably pump water. I mean, I would have the capability of doing it. It's just, would I want to do it? When we lived in a pop-up campers, what I did was I would heat the water up, take the RV pump, and I'd put it in the hot water tub that I just heated up off of firewood, and then I'd have hot water going through that water pump. I might do that over time if SHTF were going to last a long time, but it'd be just as simple. Heat water in that coffee pot, put it in this tub, maybe even 2 if I wanted to, cool it down with cold water, sponge bath. I could take the remaining of it, wash my hair, rinse it off. So propane isn't a huge issue for us living off grid. We don't need it. We like it because it's convenient. I mean, what would you rather do? Hop in the shower, take a hot shower, and not even think about hot water, or spend 5 or 10 minutes heating water over a coffee pot? It's just convenience, that's all it is, but we don't need propane. Now, the only type of propane tanks we use is the 20-pound propane tanks. I know somebody's going to say, you need to get a 500-gallon propane tank and have people bring it into you. The problem with that is our house is not to code. I've talked about that many times. They won't even install a tank here until I had a house that actually would accept it. Then I would have to put in a blue flame heater or something, a gas stove, because it has to hook into something. I know somebody's going to tell me that's not right, and you know they're going to be the experts, but I called. I asked because somebody said that in a video comment. But we get these 20-pound tanks here, and I've got 10 or 12 of them. And I just recently went and got 4 of them filled. Now, before I started running the well pump off solar, I was running it off a dual fuel generator. So it takes gas or propane. Now I have 2 different generators. I got a gasoline one and I got the dual fuel one. But I put the dual fuel one away. I changed oil in it and it's stored. I haven't used it all summer. I just recently went and got 4 tanks filled. Now I didn't use 4 tanks. One of the tanks last time, so back in April or March when I got them filled, I left a tank here. So 3 of those tanks is what I used. But you got to remember, I was using propane for the well until June maybe. So now I don't use hardly any propane. So the water heater, which we don't need to use, and cooking, which we don't need to use. So we don't need to use propane at all. So here's Carolyn's little cooking area. This is the wood pile here I was telling you that she's been splitting and finding good wood out of. I thought all this stuff was bad. But the stuff that she finds bad when she's splitting, she puts over here. And since it's wet, it smokes a lot. It gives a good flavor to the foods. So she has her oven. This has a thermostat on, or thermometer on it. We've got 2 old tire rims that she made a rocket stove out of. She uses this and put that on top of it. And she uses this all the time. She likes to cook outside. Sometimes it's not possible when it's raining, but it wouldn't take much to put a covering over this, maybe even a little tarp so she could cook out here. It's just not that difficult. For those who say that we don't live off grid, I consider propane off grid. I'm not relying on a specific industry to take care of me, and I have an ample backup supply. The generator, I like the dual fuel generator. Again, I don't use it anymore. I'm using that little bitty gasoline one. But the reason I use it up here for the well is the well would take a week or 2 before I needed to run it again. So that generator would sit there. Well, if I had gasoline in it, that gasoline can go bad. I had a generator when we were nomads and I left gasoline in it for 2 weeks. I think it was 2 weeks. What it was, we ended up at a free campsite. It had free electric. So I just threw the generator up in the truck, not thinking about it. It was just, I wasn't thinking about it. I know that I need to take the gasoline out of it. So I let it sit there, and 2 weeks later, the carburetor, the seals or something had went bad in it. So I figured if I'm putting gasoline in it, the generator could go bad sitting there for a week or a week and a half or whatever it was. Gasoline provides more power. I don't know, maybe more BTUs. I don't know the exact measurement. But with gasoline, the generator produces more power than it does with propane. The other thing you need to remember is the generator will run faster. And I feel like since it has to run faster on propane, that's going to wear the generator out more quickly. So if you're just running a little freezer off that generator, it would be better to run it off gasoline than propane because you got to run it faster. But when you're running high RPMs anyways, like a well pump, it doesn't matter what you're using. It's already running a high RPM. The nice thing about propane is it lasts forever. Propane doesn't go bad. That's what was so nice about having it here. Now I know somebody's gonna say, oh yes, it does go bad. It only lasts 30 years. Well, when we're talking about propane going bad, what they're talking about is the tank can degrade. They can degrade in about 30 years. That's about right. Still, 30 years, think of that. I'll be 52 this year. So if I have a tank that lasts 30 years, that's gonna put me up in my 80s. I think it'll do all right. I'm not that worried about it. So when I say forever, it's gonna last my life. I would think that we would want to have propane over gasoline whenever possible if you're gonna run a generator or something like that. Because gasoline, you have 10 gallons of that. Let's say SHTF were to happen, you're gonna have to use it right away, otherwise it's gonna go bad in a few months. Now I know people will tell you to get ethanol free and all that, and that's true, but ethanol free here is like $2 more expensive. It's not even worth it. But I do agree that propane would be a better solution. Now the problem with propane is it depends on how you get it. It can be kind of expensive. If you go to Dollar General, it's $20 for 4 gallons. Even though a tank holds 5 gallons, the Dollar General only has 4. And then you have the tank cost. So if you don't have an exchange, something you can take to the Dollar General and say, hey, I need to change that out, the whole thing is going to cost $60. So $20 for propane, and then you're buying a tank for $40. That tank is yours. Now you can take your tank and exchange it for another one for $20. We had to do that when we first came here because I could not find a refill place. After the first year we were here, I found a place, and they have a military discount. So they could charge me $12 to fill a tank. It's normally $15. The only disadvantage to this is you got to make sure your tank is empty. If it's not empty, they still charge you the $12, no matter how full it is. So you want to make sure it's empty, that way you get the most out of your money. But think about it, even if you're paying the $15, it's still a lot cheaper than paying the $20 for 4 gallons versus $15 for 5 gallons. So the refill is just better. And a lot of areas have a lot of refills. Tractor Supply, we used to get it there. I don't know if they still do it, but Tractor Supply used to do it. Different areas do it all over the place. U-Haul facilities tend to do it. Campgrounds, they do it, some of them. But we just didn't have any place around here, which is kind of amazing because this is kind of a tourist area. Every summer people come around here with RVs, but nobody fills up propane. That's okay, I found one and it's a nice price. But the tanks are expensive. I've got tanks all over this country, I think. When we were nomads, people would just give them away. I had this one guy give me a full tank. He said, oh, I don't use this anymore. We were staying at somebody's place. Carolyn had a family member that was sick. So we were staying at this person's house in the camper. And he gave us a full tank. So the tank and everything. Well, the tank itself was $40. If I wanted to go to Dollar General and pick one up, and they're not new, they're certified, but they're not new, it cost $40. So this guy had one. It didn't matter how old it was. He said, oh, it's been sitting here for years. Well, the tank needs to be certified. I think every 7 years. Don't quote me on that, but I think it's every 7 years. You gotta get them recertified. Use the gas out of it. Take Dollar General, exchange it. It was free, so $40 versus free. Huge savings. And I had them all over. People were giving them away all the time. Well, I can't remember if it was Mom's house or Dad's house. I left a bunch of them because we were traveling and I just didn't have room for them anymore. I wish I could get those back. But I have a friend on Facebook who's been following my channel since day one. He's watched every one of my videos, I'm sure of it. We talk all the time on Facebook. He sent me a picture and he saw on Facebook that somebody was giving away 2 tanks. Well, there's $80 right there. He said, I'm going and getting them. So even if they need to be certified, now I can go to my refill place and they'll certify them for $10, which at the $12 rate, it's not too bad because if I take it to Dollar General and exchange it, I'm paying $20 for 4 gallons. So it almost equals out in price to get it recertified by them or to just exchange it. It doesn't really make a huge difference. But if you're paying the $15 like everybody else, then get it exchanged. Go to Dollar General, get it exchanged. And you got a tank that is now certified. I have a video way back. It's like one of the very first ones we did when I was still, I think we were doing a test run for our nomadic lifestyle 6, 7 years ago. I didn't know anything about propane tanks back then. So I'm going through this whole learning curve and process. and I found out how to get them certified. If you're paying to get them certified, that may not be the best thing to do. Just go and get it exchanged at Dollar General for nothing. It's free, just exchange it. So you have this tank that was free. Even if it's empty, then just take it to Dollar General and now you have a tank. I'm going to start doing this. I had not thought about this before, but if I see one close by, even if they want $5 or $10 for it, it would be worth going and buying it and be a lot cheaper than getting it from Dollar General, and just exchange it or get it certified, whatever it needs to be. Then I can have tons of propane around here. Like I said, 30 years it would last. And if SHTF were to happen, I'd have a huge stockpile of propane that's basically free except for the propane cost. So if you'll click this up next box, take you to a video where I was talking about the bank crashed and took all the money with it. So if I can inspire you to use your smarts when you live in your dreams. Thanks for watching.